Today I, Juliana Tinger, and my group members Alexa Goodlow, Bailey Grams, George Santiago, Katie Allen, and Stephen Joseph will all be talking about the business model of DC Comics. To start off with some basics about DC Comics, I will be giving a little bit of information on the history. If not already aware, DC Comics is known for being the king of all comic books. It was started in 1939 by Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson, and when started, it was originally called National Allied Publications. The first comic book ever created by DC Comics was called The New Fun, The Big Magazine #1. Later on, the initials DC came from the series called Detective Comics, which was a series that the popular superhero Batman actually arose from. Although their biggest rivalry is with a well-known book known as Marvel Comics, DC continues to stay on top as a leader in their industry. They are a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Entertainment and Times Warner, and you can find their headquarters in New York City.
The culture and society surrounding the time DC Comic was founded was extremely broken due to the Great Depression, and a lot of social trends were not on the rise because of the everyday struggle of just surviving life. DC Comic became the first comic to bring about original and fresh content. It focused on popular trends, but focused on them in a new way, which everyone was forced to do because of the Great Depression. With the rise of the Great Depression, crime rates skyrocketed, and they had a hope of something coming to restore their broken society. DC encompassed the superheroes Americans had pictured and not only needed but wanted. And so they introduced Batman and Superman during the 1930s, which allowed Americans to picture them as coming and healing the brokenness of America at the time.
When talking about the regulatory conditions for DC Comics, it's easiest to talk about the comics themselves, since these regulations have changed within the last 10 years. So starting in 1954, a mental health expert named Frederick Wortham wrote a book about how comics lead to juvenile delinquency within children. So this was a very important book. People really listened to it, and it led to the Comics Magazine Association of America being formed, which led to the Comics Code Authority, which set regulations and rules for the publishing of comics. These regulations included rules about information that you could include for nudity, religion, and drug abuse. So the comics had to be sent into the CCA, who would then approve or deny the comics, and then if they were approved, they would be published with the seal with the Comics Code Authority on there. So recently, many comics are moving away from the CCA, and in 2011, DC co-publishers Jim and Dan said that they would be leaving the CCA and switching to an in-house rating system, which includes E for everyone, T for teen, T plus for teen plus, and M for mature.
As one might imagine, during the early days of DC Comics, during the gold, silver, and bronze age of comics, the primary source of income for DC was, of course, their comic book sales. Most of their revenue stream would be then return invested into more newer publishers and other types of new franchise comics. However, in 1985, with the start of the modern age of comics, comic book sales started to not be their primary source of income. Because of their merger with Time Warner, there was a lot of diversification into other media industries such as film and television. Most of their income comes from movie sales, TV series, and online subscriptions in the present day. In fact, over $1 billion of DC revenue came from TV series such as Arrow or Titans. Now, most money earned is invested into studios, actors, or directors for new TV show ideas, with less and less money being invested into the comic book sector each year.
So the rise of technology had a very positive effect on DC Comics. Originally, DC Comics print media was very fragile, it ripped easily, and wasn't really meant to survive. But as popularity rose and technology rose, especially with the World War II era, DC Comics became more artistic, the paper became more durable, and it became a stronger brand. In terms of digital media, DC Comics originally was very averse to digital media, and they weren't really for it until they saw the profits that could be made. And when they saw that, it became 11.4% of their revenue. They began pursuing digital comics, movies, TV shows, video games, and things of the sort. Currently, DC Comics is pursuing the latest technological trends with virtual reality, 3D, and things of the sort.
So at the beginning of 2019, the future for the DC Extended Universe has never looked brighter. At the very end of 2018 in December, they released their film Aquaman, which made over $1 billion in box office revenue and it became the company's first movie to break that barrier of $1 billion. And this really pushed them into 2019 and grew a lot of anticipation about their films, which are coming up in the next couple of years. They have lots of films in the works currently, 2 big sequels, one being the sequel to the Wonder Woman film, which came out a couple of years ago and was very successful, as well as a sequel to the Aquaman film. They also have notably 2 big films coming out this year, Shazam and Joker, which is another one of their movies that they are remaking. Their DC Universe, the online streaming service that they created and opened in the September of 2018, has been growing steadily in their subscriber base since its release. And this is mainly due to their original content which they release on the site. Notably, Titans and Young Justice Outsiders are their 2 biggest shows that they are releasing for that streaming service. And at the beginning of 2019, they were both in the top 7 most streamed shows at the time. So in the future, DC will continue to focus most of their energy on their films and their TV series, which are their most lucrative commodities at the time. This is due to sales based strictly on the media products themselves, so sales of movie tickets and subscriptions, as well as merchandise and things like that which go along with the universe.